Welcome to People Love Process. We're going to be doing a third impromptu over-the-shoulder vector building. My regular over-the-shoulder content isn't really scripted. This one is definitely not scripted. I actually went to check my notes before I started recording this. I'm like, oh, I don't have any notes. Okay, I'm just going to wing it. And that's what I'm going to do. Now, I prepared enough to show you and walk you through something. And this is a little weird. I was contacted by a guy, and he had found what you see here on Adobe stock. And he wanted something that was like it in terms of it being a lion head, but he wanted it roaring. And he had a pretty cool name, I think, worked out to represent roar, but the way he spelled it was pretty unique. So I thought that was cool. And I decided, this would be something I just do just for fun anyway. So I told him, here, I'll give you a discount rate, quoted it. He liked that, but then so I just started on it, but then he kind of disappeared. So this is just something I'm creating to create, and we're going to walk through it, and I'm going to show you something because after I created an initial design, I'm like going, I don't know if I like it. And then, so what I'm going to create today is another sketch that I drew off of my initial sketch. And sometimes that's the way it goes too. So let's dive into it. This was the Adobe stock that he just thought this, lion looked too tame. And I agree. It's a lion looks cool when it's roaring. You see his teeth. So that's what we're going to do. So obviously, I've done other lion graphics over the years. These are all for different actual client projects. And these were fun. You can see these two are pretty similar in their approach. They're different, but they're for two different clients. The most recent ones on here would be this one up in the top left. That's for like a political action committee, something like that. And then the bottom one in the middle was for a mother and her son who started a sportswear company. Not sure how successful that ever became, but that's what I created them for. So I always look at reference to the real world, even when I'm working on a graphic, because it'll give you insight into, what characteristics make a lion. We can go ahead and close that so it's not covering the reference material. And that's what I do in this case. And I just go to Google and find the best images I can that show what I need to create. And if I can find one at the right angle, that just makes it a little easier. This one's pretty good. So you see their nose wrinkles up when they're roaring, that type of thing. Here he's pretty placid in the bottom left-hand corner. And depending on the angle you're viewing him at, you don't see a lot of that wrinkling of the nose. So those are the things I pay attention to, the shape of his eyes, and then from there, I can take a lot of creative liberty as I move forward. So I just start working out a sketch. I'm thinking this is going to be symmetric. I only have to draw half of it. So I start trying to figure out how will I handle it. This shows a drawing. Then I'm thinking, well, how am I going to handle these eyes? I'm experimenting with this, or the tongue, or maybe his chin should be shaped like this and his nose. So I try to work all that out in the drawn stage. The drawn stage is where I do most of my shape recognition, most of my discerning of shape and form, and make as many edits at that stage. Not to say when I go to build it, I don't make changes. I definitely do, as you're going to see. But I try to figure it out as best I can before I jump on a computer. It just makes the process more efficient when you do that. So this was my tight sketch. So once I get it worked out to a point that I think it looks good, then I definitely do a tight sketch. This is what I scan into my flatbed scanner. So I end up having a nice refined drawing I can build from. Now I only drew half of this, but I took it into Photoshop, and I always test it first where I reflect it to make sure it doesn't look too wide or too narrow, because I might adjust it at that point even. But this one I thought looked pretty good. So we're going to, I went ahead and I built this. Now this design, I'm just walking you through the first iteration that I already built, because we're not going to build this. We're going to build a different one, because the more I looked at this as I kept moving forward, the more I'm going, So this is where I would select this, and I would do like I always do, just set the opacity, start building all of my shapes. So this shows how I build the shapes and construct all the forms that's going to obviously make up the final design. Here's all the base vectors. And then, of course, we can offset to get the outline. Now this, yes, I offsetted, but I went in and cleaned up a lot of stuff, because offset is never perfect and it never makes for a graceful point. It'll like go straight at some point, because again, another feature Adobe's never improved on. And so you have to do a lot of manual craftsmanship to make these look good. And I just do it on one side because I know I can reflect it and make it look good on the other side. So here's all my base black and white vectors. These were the base colors. He said he did like the colors that were in the Adobe stock. So this is where all of these would end up being gold. We'd make his tongue red. I even think his eyes, to make him more sinister, would look red as well. And so this is where I tend to set something aside, come back to it later, and that's what I did here. And I decided I need to make some edits. So I'm going to turn on this layer. This is where it was, and these were the edits that I made, where I just went in and I did little rounding on everything. And this takes time to do this, but I really think it buttons up a design. Let's go ahead and zoom in closer to the teeth. The teeth are a good example. So as I built it originally, this doesn't look bad, but it looks way better with rounds on it. It looks more custom when you take the time to use what I call subtle rounding. So there's that. Again, I set something aside, look at it, and I'm going, I'm not sure about his ears and these shapes up here. They almost look like horns the way they're flaring out. In my sketch, I didn't even think that. But now that I've set it aside and it came back to, I go, I might need to revise this. And so I went back and I made these changes. And then I'm going, okay, the outside hair, I think, looks better. Doesn't look like horns. But then I'm looking at his ears. I'm going, wait a minute. His ears are way too far out. I wasn't paying attention, and I'm going, yeah, that's not going to work. So I had to go back and edit these and bring them closer so it looked better. And then I'm looking at this, I'm going, it's not bad, but something's bugged me about it. Then I decided to make another change. And so I went in and changed this. So if we compare what we had to this, I think this looks better. And then as I'm looking at it more and thinking about it, I'm going, what else can we do? And I'm going, well, maybe adding the detail. And so this is where I'll print out a black and white and work out all the shading. You've seen me do this before. I'll then build all the shapes like this. And these are all the shapes that will end up leading to the shadows. So here's all the shadows, all these shapes here. So if I go ahead and select all these shapes, this is the shadowing effect I showed you. I think it was in a Krabuki. No. Yeah, Krabuki design. I showed you how I create shading hues and how I apply them. So I'd select a shape, take a hue, and apply, apply the gold shading, and that looks good. I'll select the ones for the tongue, apply the red shading, and then gray on white to get that shading. I think that looks pretty good. And then on the highlights, it's just white, and we're just adjusting the opacity. And because it's a global color, we can select these, and all these are just tints, in this case 30% tint of the base. Now as I'm looking at it, I'm going, I don't mind the shading and stuff, but it's more illustrative than logo. I do a lot of illustrative logos, but even I'm thinking this is more illustration than it is a logo. So I think it's going to work better in a simplified format. But then the more I looked at it, and I set it aside for a day or so and came back to it, and when I looked at it again, I go, I don't hate it, but I don't think it works for what this person wanted it to work for. And at this point, I thought he was still going to move forward on a project. So this is where I printed it out. And I just started drawing on top of it to simplify it, to make it distinctly graphic and not so illustrative. And this is what we need to build now. So I think this is going to work a little better. And I've made sure to attach his ears to the body because looking at reference, I mean, they don't have small ears, but they're right next to the top of their head. So I think this is going to work better. So again, we're going to select this and we're going to go ahead and just build it. And I just wanted to show you everything that came before this because normally I don't do that, but in this case I did. And that's the way it goes at times. The creative process isn't always smooth and perfect. And one thing I do want to do, and I usually hide my rules in these videos just because it makes for a cleaner video. But I'm going to turn it on because I want to pull out a guide here. And then I'll just go ahead and hide those rules again. And I'm doing that. And this is where you might want to zoom in. I just want to drop a guide right in the middle since we're going to be building like that. Then we can lock that layer. And this the layer we'll build on here. And all we're going to do is build our artwork here. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to build the shape of the eye because it's going to be independent. So let's go to our graphic styles. I'm going to select an outline size. And I'm going to go to the arc by, I always forget the name, arc by points tool. Part of the Subscribe, which is a plugin by Astute, because I can do all my curves like this. Now notice it's going to do a perfect curve. This isn't a perfect, but I'll start out like that. Then I'll adjust it. Then I'll go back to that tool. And when I first used this tool years ago, it wouldn't continue a path. It just wouldn't connect. And I go, man, if you guys could make this connect, I'd use this all the time. And they added that feature. Now you can turn it off so it won't, but they added that feature. And that's the kind of user feedback that's awesome, that Astute is great at, that Adobe, even though they have entire forums dedicated to people saying, hey, I'd like to see this, I'd like to see this, rarely do they ever do that. So there's that. So we're going to create this curve like this. And on this one, I want it to curve into kind of like that. I'll go back over here. And on this one, it's going to go all the way. I'm not sure, so I'm going to go all the way out here. And again, this isn't a perfect curve, so I'll adjust this one to match my drawing. Then I might finesse that one a little bit. And I'm going to close that shape. This is where I'll go to ellipse tool because we'll create the inner part with the ellipse. Like that. And something like that. Doesn't have to be perfect. This is where I'll select a shape. And I wish I had a little light on my keyboard because I can't see my F keys sometimes. We're going to clone that. I'll just fill it so you can see it's on top. This is a throwaway shape. And we'll just use that to trim the eyeball. Pathfinder minus front. And then we'll go back to lip shape. And I think I can use that to create the outer part. Something like that. Looks good. Again, I'm always using what I call throwaway shapes, which I create a shape for no other reason than to edit, oops, wrong one, to edit the other shape. And then I can select both of these, unite them. Now we have the shape of the eye. And the reason why I did this is because I want to use this shape to create this part of the overall head shape. And it's easier to just think of it as one whole shape rather than breaking into parts. This one makes sense, as you'll see, to do this. So I'm going to go ahead and build this. And by the way, when I create these, I never like anything perfectly straight. So I put a subtle curve there. I'll go all the way down here like this. And this can be a perfect curve. Doesn't have to match my drawing here. You can even remove that and retain the curve. And I tend to just smart remove those. I'll adjust it ever so slightly. Go back to the arch tool. Continue where I left off. Deform the cheek here, like that. And then I'll start on the outside. I'm not going to do the outside yet. I just realized I should have stopped it right about here. So I'll cut that, get rid of that. Then we'll go at, nope, you know what? Even I lose track of stuff at times. I think what we're going to do is we're going to go like this. And I will go to the center and I'll close it. So that looks like a strange shape, but that'll get the top and the right side. And then I want to create this separately. So what I want to do is I want to create the nose shape like this. And I think on this one, I want to go past the center a bit. Kind of like that. And this is where I would use the corner widget. It'll work fine for what we're doing here. I'm thinking, I'm trying to make a decision here. I do this all the time when I'm working. If I'm not sure, I need to think about it. And I think what I want to do here is I want to bring this up because I want this to flare up a little bit on the top right. So I'll bring it over as much as I want it to flare out. Snap that. And because that's on top, then I'll just select these two and go minus front. And I'll round this off so it won't be a super sharp point. I think that'll look good. You can see this isn't a perfect straight line, and I don't want it to be. So the way I do that is I will put a curve line kind of like that. Then this will do this. Then I'll select these two, make a copy of it or a clone, and I use an F key. If you don't have keyboard shortcuts and you're not in the habit of using them, watch my Creating with Keyboard Shortcuts on People of Process channel. And then things that you do on a regular basis, turn them into keyboard shortcuts. That's why I use them. I've been using mine for well over 20 years now. So with these selected, I just hit the F3 key. It's cloned everything. And then I take Reflect, go to Central Anchor, snap on it, reflect it over. And now we have all the elements here for the nose. I'll go ahead and unite them. And this is where I'll go back to this one. And I'm going to use the corner widget. I don't want a true radius. I want to do standard. Standard will keep in mind this angle with this 90-degree angle. And then I can pull this out as far as I want. I think that looks pretty good. I'll match it on the other side. That's why I use the plugin instead of the corner widget. And I think it almost looks like a whale tail now that I'm looking at it. But I think that's gonna work good. Next thing I want to do is I want to create the cheek. And one shape is going to inform on another shape on a design like this. So I'm going to start this cheek here, and then I'm going to go all the way up past the eye like this, and then create that curve with the arch tool like that. And the reason why I did that is because I want to overlap it with this other shape here. And I'll bring it down like this and close it. Again, I can remove this anchor if I want by using Smart Remove on Astute's palette. Now, if you want to Smart Remove in Illustrator, this is another example. Illustrator will add features and then never tell anybody. And it's almost like, well, we don't want them to see that we just ripped off what a plugin company's been doing for almost a decade, and we finally got around to adding it. So we can't really use it to bolster stuff. But let's tell our real people, and they'll hype it all on social media. That happens a lot. So how do you Smart Remove in Illustrator? Well, it's not very smart in my opinion, because it should be part of the pin tool. It really isn't. You have to highlight it. Once it's highlighted, then you have to go to the minus anchor tool here, select it, then you have to hold shift down, and then you click it, and then it'll Smart Remove. It's like 3 steps. It's not, you can see this how fast it is with Astute. Oh, I'll highlight it, click that. It's easy. Or you can use their Smart Remove tool, which you can do it in mass if you want to. So again, not implemented very well. And when they brought it out, they never told anybody. I only found out about it because I did see a reel. So there's that. But the reel makes it sound, oh, this is awesome. It's like, well, I've been doing that for well over a decade before Adobe finally got around to doing it. So it's not really that awesome. Okay, let's go ahead. Actually, on this one, we could Smart Remove this if we wanted to, like that. And I always do that to clean up art anyway. I just think it optimizes the artwork. We'll take these 2 shapes, we'll fuse them together. And, oh, actually, no, I don't want to do that yet. I want to take this, and then I want to figure out, I don't know if I want perfect geometry. Let's go like this. We'll just see what it looks like. We'll go offset. Yeah, it's way too much. Let's try 7 maybe. Not enough. 12. I wish you could, there's little arrows where you could nudge it up. That'd make the process go a little faster. Again, these type of little controls, they rarely go back to an update. You have to just do it like this, then click that. And that's pretty good. I think it's, okay, I know what I'm going to do. I'm just going to build it manually. I thought maybe I would just offset it, but I want some tapering to go from thinner to thick down to thin. So I'll just manually do it, no biggie. And I'll go like that. I'll Smart Remove this because especially on a taper, it's easy to adjust when you don't have an anchor halfway like that. I think that looks good. I'm just thinking I'm gonna end up using this path twice, so I'm gonna clone it, Command C, Command F, and then the first one I'll just go ahead and close this shape, because this one, if we go ahead and fill it, is just gonna edit this shape of the cheek like that, so we get this part looking nice. And then on this one, we'll go ahead and stop it right at the corner here. Cut it, that is, with the scissor tool. Delete the part we don't need, and then I'll go back to the arc tool, and I'm just going to establish this shape here, like that. Again, I would smart remove that anchor and adjust that. That looks good. And then I'll go from there all the way up here, make that curve. Again, if I want to remove that, I would. You don't have to. I'm in such a habit of optimizing art when I build. It's just easier than trying to remember to go back and do that afterwards. If you want to, you don't even really need to. It's not going to ruin anything. And then this is where the Arch tool shines, just creating these main shapes is just so much easier. To build those curves. Doesn't always have to be perfect. I'll still go back and use the Bezier curve handles like that. Then I'll continue building, but not on that same path. I'll start here, deform this. And I think on this one, it's just going to be easier not to use the arc tool because it's kind of oblong in terms of its curve. But I will use their ghost handles on Vector Scribe by Astute Graphics. Ghost handles, awesome name. The cool feature, just awesome feature. But I love that they named it ghost handles, like, because an engineer didn't name that. That was some creativity put there. An engineer would, here's what engineers name, to knock out a shape in freehand. If there's a shape on top of another shape and you knocked it out to form a new shape, that was called punch. And it made sense. You're punching through the bottom shape. What did Illustrator engineers call it? Minus front. That doesn't even make sense, really. It's like minus front. Why that's not even the right way to think about it, but that's what it is. So there you go. Okay. I might have told this story before in another video. And if I have, just forgive me, because I get my mom's gene. My mom tells us stories all the time. And she forgets she's told us, Mom, you've told us this story like 3 or 4 times now since we've been here the last 2 days. It's kind of it's kind of just funny now. But I went to Adobe Max one year, and it's down in San Diego at that time. And I saw a session that was going to be done by Adobe engineer by the name of Niraj, who's a good friend of mine. Nice guy. Just became a U.S. citizen and moved him and his family to the U.S. And he still works with Adobe, so that's kind of cool. Anyway, he was going to be doing a session, and it was about some of the new features at that time. One of them was the curvature tool. And they had showed me it in beta, and I'm going, well, they showed it to me on their engineer's PC laptop, and it's not in the UI that you see in Illustrator. It's just beta testing the functionality in and of its own, isolated. And he let me try it, and I go, oh, are you going to implement this into the pen tool? That'd be kind of cool. Well, no. And I'm going, why? This is a pen tool thing, creating curves. That's what you use a pen tool for. Now, they made it its own tool. It's the curvature tool. And so he's going to be talking about that in the session. I said, well, I'm definitely going to this. I want to see what he shows, just out of curiosity for no other reason. So I'm standing in line, and here comes Niraj and another Adobe engineer, and he sees me, and he makes a beeline straight towards me, and he goes, I just want you to know we are not talking about the snapping bug in Illustrator. I just started laughing. I'm going, dude, I'm not here to troll you. I just want to see what you say about the curvature tool. I know, but you want the snapping bug fixed. I go, well, yeah, but I don't expect you to fix it like here at Max. So I don't know. That was just kind of funny. He's now on the Adobe type team. And the thing is, I found out at the last Max I went to last year. Is we went out, me and the owner of Astute Graphics went out to dinner with Niraj and found out that he started his career as a designer. He was a in-house designer at a print shop over in India. And he would always be responsible for figuring out problems and doing his design, but he loved typography. And he did a lot of type-centric type stuff. And so now he's right in his wheelhouse in terms of what he enjoys, which is cool. So he's kind of your true-natured type geek, and he's good at it. So a lot of the features they've brought to Adobe with typography, he's been a major part of it. He has some patents with Adobe on some of his type technology he's developed over the years for him. So nice guy. By the way, I guess I should say, it was about a month and a half, 2 months ago, an Adobe engineer. I'd never met this engineer in person before, but he contacts me in the beta forum that I'm a part of, and he says, hey, I just wanted to let you know that the next version, the next update to Illustrator will have a fix for the snapping bug. And I'm going, really? Kind of out of the blue. So I'm going, okay, well, I'll definitely check that out. And I decided to install it just to basically double check if it indeed is fixed. And it seemed like it was working the way it should. And so I thought, wow, okay, they actually fixed it. And I should have waited a little while longer. Because as of this week, it was doing it full on. I was doing some package design, and it just wouldn't snap to the vector shapes right below another shape. I'm dragging it over, and I'm going, okay, is this because the layer above is locked? And so I moved to a different area, and I tried it, and it worked there, but I go back to their area, and it wouldn't work there. So it's intermittent once again. They haven't fixed it. It still exists in some way. I at this point, I just don't think they'll ever fix it. I don't think they have the dedication to figure it out. Because the way he explained me that they fixed it was they turned on a modifier. They made a modifier automatic that you in the past would have to initiate on your own. And I'm going, I never had to initiate a modifier to get snapping to work when it was CS6. So I didn't completely understand why he said that. And I didn't really think that was the case because I never did a modifier. It just snapped. It just worked. And that was his reasoning. And then it's still broken. So it's now a little over 12 years that feature has been busted. And now I've moved it back into it's broken status. It doesn't seem to happen as much anymore. So they fixed something, but they didn't fix the whole problem. Okay, so you can see how our main is looking. That's pretty good. I think what I'm going to do, just so we have the shape, is I'm going to go up and create this ear shape. So I'm going to try to create it without any any anchor points up here. I don't know if that's going to be possible, but we'll try it anyway. And I'll just pull these out. Then I get access to the handles. Like that. It's not bad, but I think it'd benefit from one anchor point, like right about here, to control it a little easier. Then you can finesse these angles. Now, this is at an angle. It's not really at a tangent, and you don't have to worry about that. Some people like to say it should always be at a tangent. Well, if you're doing a typeface, let's say sans serif, that might be the case, but in this case, no. And I'll show you what I mean, because we're going to go to the reposition point tool, which is part of Astute Graphics Vector Scribe. I call it the Von tool because I'm the one that suggested it and they implemented it. What it allows you to grab an anchor, slide it, and you notice these magenta dots that show up. Those are tangents. So I was pretty close up here. This is technically a tangent at an angle, but a tangent at a 90 degree would be this one. And I could move it here if I wanted to. So it just depends on what you want to do. But you can see with mine, if I select it again, I was just barely off. I just had to move it over here. Now it's at a perfect tangent. So angled tangents are fine. There's nothing wrong with them. And I've seen real hypers on Instagram. You always want to use tangents. No, you don't. That doesn't even make sense. And then you go to their website and you see what they create, and I go, well, now I know why they said that. Yes, I'm a vector snob at times, but for good reason. Okay. Then I'll just clone it. Let's sample this one. Some of the people that post all these reels about, like I saw one on the curvature tool, and he is trying to build a letter form just using the curve. You would never do that because he's setting it up without any curves first, then going back, then you put the curves in. I go, why would you ever build anything that way? That's just stupid. And he still didn't perfect it because there's one area that he obviously missed that's in the video. And so I just make a comment. I go, if you learn how to use the pen tool and you master that, you never need, you just literally would never need the curvature tool. And I find the people that argue for that, like for every new tool, like you actually need it. It's like, no wonder there's feature bloat in Adobe because they kind of cater to that mindset. Okay, so there's the ear. And what I want to do is I want to take this shape here, and you can see we have it going all the way down here. So what I'm going to do, this is going to look a little weird, but it's okay. I'm going to take this and I'm going to continue this shape here. Go like this. I know this is kind of strange, but just bear with me, like this. And then all I have to do is take this shape and we'll close it. Actually, we need to finish building the rest of it down here. This is a lot where one shape informs on another shape. So actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to build this, we're going to build the teeth. So this is going a little slower than I thought, but that's okay. I don't like rushing things. I just, people go, it was pretty recently, somebody goes, I would have thought you build faster. And I go, I never proclaimed to be the fastest. Actually, my daughter, she read my book, actually, and she is a really fast vector builder, but she does it correctly and does a great job. and I would give her an assignment when she is working with me. And by the way, Savannah's out on her own now. And then I hire her whenever I have a project come in that we could both work on. We're doing that right now on several branding projects. None of them are on our website yet. Okay, so we're going to do this. So Savannah's fast. I don't care if I'm fast or not. I just want it to look good. So if that means I go slower, then I go slower. I don't care. Nobody's paying me to be fast. Okay, and I'm going to try to go all the way up here and then adjust it. By the way, I noticed they add this dimension tool. I might hide that in another tool because it rearranged my icons, and I keep going, well, wait, why is that there? Muscle memory to me is more important than Adobe's feature bloat, so I'll move that diagram to somewhere else at some point so my toolbox remains where tools should be. This one's throwing me off because I normally go here to get to these tools like PathScribe. Man, I've been using certain features, certain tools, certain functionality for so many years that I don't even think about it. I just know muscle memory wise where to go and how to access it. And then when Adobe shoves another tool in by default, which is this measurement or diameter or dimensions tool, I think is what they call it. It messes up that muscle memory because it moves icons around. So you can customize your icons, but I should point out, yes, you can, but man, that interface is so buggy. I was doing a movie for LinkedIn a few years ago, and I was just going to show that. I'd only done it once, and I tried to do it. It took me 2 hours to record the movie because Illustrator kept crashing on me when I was doing that. I'm going, maybe this is why I never see anybody using that tool, that functionality. Yeah, it's kind of crazy that they would make it that wonky. Okay, let's do this bottom. Oop, I don't think that angle looks good. Let's go a little lower. That looks better. And then we'll close this shape. So why am I doing the teeth? I was focusing on these. Well, because we're going to go ahead, even though we're not going to reflect everything at this point, we'll reflect the teeth because we need those to edit some of the other shapes. So I'll select these, unite them, select these, unite them. And what I want to do here is I do want this to be mathematical to knock out the curve on the bottom part of the chin. So we'll go offset. Again, way too big. Try 5. Not enough. Maybe twice, 10. That's pretty close. I think I'll do that. But I think what I'm going to do is smart remove this one. And I did that because I want to nudge this over just a bit. And then on this one, I'm going to nudge it down like that. And then I'll adjust this. Okay, that looks good. So I'll select this, select the cheek, for lack of a better term, and I'll slice off the bottom. So that looks good. And then we'll do the same thing down here. So I'll just try the same tolerance. So I'll go offset 10. That's okay. I'm going to try something here where I just smart remove those. And then on this one, I'm going to select this. I'm going to go back to that nice reposition points tool because I'm going to put this at the tangent here because it'll be easier to control. That's why I use plugins. You'd have to eyeball it in Illustrator. There is no precise way of doing that. I just pull this over, pull it in, because it's okay if it tapers. Doesn't have to be that exact same dimension. I'll take this, go up to where the point comes to a point. Then I'll adjust this handle, pull it out a bit. It's looking a little flat, so let's go ahead and finesse this. I'm just trying to get a nice flow here. I'm almost thinking moving this down a little bit and adjusting this. And I literally look at this, and if it feels right, then I have a good idea that it's going to be right. Now this one, actually, now that I'm looking at this, I don't want this to be a curve. Oh, I had an extra handle there. Well, I'm glad I moved that. Let's go ahead and just remove it. And this will be a corner anchor. So I want it to come to a point there. And that curve will be like that. I'm going to try something. I'm going to try removing this and see if we can get that flow better. Because sometimes if you have too many anchors, it makes it harder to get that elegant curve. And I actually think that looks better, so I'm glad I did that. So this shape, all we're going to use this shape for is to edit the chin shape here. So this comes down, it'll come to like a 3 o'clock position, then it'll come down to a point like that. Boy, I do need changes because I keep wanting to go to the same tool, and it's wrong because of the dimension tool they added. Okay. I did it again. Okay. You know, Apple's done the same thing with messing with their OS to screw up years of muscle memory. Is for years I use auto startup and auto shutdown on my machine. So by the time I get into my studio in the morning, the machine was ready to go. I wouldn't have to manually do it. They removed that from the settings. It's like you have to hack it now with a terminal line command, which is dumb. And it doesn't work at times. It will cause an error. They didn't improve things. They just made it. I don't know. I think Apple's problem is they oversimplify to a fault at times. And Adobe's problem is they overcomplicate to a fault. It's like, it's what you have to deal with when you're a creative. I'm going to bring this all the way up here and close this shape. Then I'll go back to this and just add the nice little flare like that. That looks good. Then I can take this shape, make sure it's on top. We'll color it. You can see it's sitting on top. Then I can take this and trim it. And that's going to work really well. Now for reflection purposes, I usually, go back into a shape like this, add an anchor point so I can just pull this out. That way it'll overlap. Because at times, even though it'll create a line when you try to duplicate stuff, it's really annoying. But apparently, according to an engineer I asked at, it was the same conference I went up to, Niraj, when he was going to do his thing on the curvature tool, different area of the conference. And I asked an engineer, another engineer I knew, I said, why does it do that when you reflect? And his argument was, that's because Illustrator is too precise or something like that. And I was just like, okay. I don't think that's really the case, but whatever. Okay. So now I'm going to close, and this is going to be another crazy shape. Go all the way up here. We'll close it with this shape. So we're just closing the shape, and we're finishing it down here. Once we get this done, then it'll go pretty fast. And on these videos, I know I try to make them go as fast as possible, but as I said, I'm not the fastest vector builder. I don't care about that. I just want it to look the way I want it to look, and if that takes me more time, then so be it. But when I save these movies and put them on YouTube, I really finesse the chapters. So you can watch part of what you want to watch, and then you can fast forward to the next chapter. You don't need to watch every iteration of a specific segment. Okay, we're almost there. I'll go up here, go back to the arc tool, create that little arc there. Go back to the path scribe tool. And by the way, path scribe is the same if I go to the anchor point tool. Same thing. You just don't get the ghost handles. That's why I love the ghost handles. It's easier, faster. It's almost like the Superman slogan, faster, stronger. That's the way I look at Astute's plugins. It's just, in my opinion, the word superior is accurate to use for Astute. Okay, the next thing I want to do is I want to create the inside the ear. Then, oh, I forgot. Let's go ahead and just crank these out because these will be quick ones. Because I'll just do this. And then I can go to the arc tool. Actually, I'll do this. Then I'll do the arc tool there. And then we'll use the other shape to edit it. It's funny how many, when I create certain graphics, there's certain themes I've created over and over for different companies and clients. One is I've done a lot of hawks, a lot of lions. Trying to think of other animal. If you look at the totality of all the logos I've ever done, there's so many animal metaphors in there. I never set out to kind of focus on, I've always liked logo design, but I never distinctly planned on doing it for illustrative design. It just kind of worked out that way, but I really do enjoy it. Now, this was another cool tool. It's called Circle by Points tool, because I can create it on that exact curve like this, and then I can just go ahead and size it up. And then I don't want it perfect. I want tapers, so I'll bring in that. Like that, and then that way I can close this shape, make sure this shape is on top, and I can trim that so we get that nice gap there. And then on this one, you know, I don't even have to offset on this. I could probably just make a copy and move it, and then we can trim that shape. Just realized the bottom point. We'll do that. Then I'll select these two anchors and delete them. So we got that. Okay, let's do the inner part of the ear, and then we can build the base art. Then we can color it and see what we have. So go back to the arc tool here, the inside of the ear. We don't want that. We want to do the arc. then this won't be a perfect curve. That's fine. I probably should have just done that manually, but we'll start off this way and this finesse the Bezier curves like that. And then on this one, we'll close the shape. We'll use the anchor point tool to get access to these handles to create the inside curve of the ear like that. And I think that's all the shapes. Oh, we have the tongue and the implied whiskers. So let's do the tongue. We can do most of this with the ellipse tool. And by the way, if you want to expand on both sides to make the bottom of the tongue kind of flatter of sorts, and I showed this in the badge design movie I did. It's really stupid the way they implemented this. You have to go to the scale tool, click on this side, and then, nope, see, oh, I'm sorry, did I hit shift? No. Hit shift. See, now I don't even remember how to do it now, because it's so easy to forget. It's like, it's just stupid. So even though I've shown it, and I'll retain it, but as soon as I work for a period of time and I don't use it every day, that's not something I needed to use every day. It's not intuitive, and that's the problem with how they implement a lot of stuff. It could be far more intuitive. They just don't have, I've said this, I'm a broken record when I said this, and it's kind of beating a dead horse, but it's true, is they have nobody on their team that actually uses the software, so they don't know any better. They just do it like, hey, what do you think of this? No, that's stupid. Why would you ever do it that way? Okay, here we go. And then I will take this shape, we'll bring this shape to the front, take the original elliptical shape, kind of lop that off, make sure this is on top still, and then minus front like this. Then, I didn't need it that much, but we'll take that rectangle shape, we'll trim it. Then again, just for production's sake, we'll make it so it'll overlap itself. Okay, probably the easiest thing, this whole design, are these. The whiskers, or as I said earlier, implied whiskers, like that. And we'll do this one. And we'll do this one. Let's go ahead and do the bottom one. By the way, on this project, I technically started on it before the client, well, he had already agreed to it, so I sent him the quote and the paperwork I normally do, and went ahead and started on it since I had the time, and I just thought to myself, well, I'll just be ahead of schedule. Then he kind of ghosted me, so I'm creating this one because I like what I drew out, and whether or not he ever uses it, at this point, he's not returned my email, so no big deal. I create the asset. I'll use it for, I don't know, something. I'll figure it out. Lion's another theme that's come up many times over the years. So, okay, so here's all of our base, just vector shapes. It's not clean art. We haven't perfected it yet, but this is where I'll usually make a copy of everything. I'll group it, and then in my build file, just move it up and drop it on the X layer. And that's, once again, my vector junk drawer. But let's go ahead and clean up this shape. And just so we can see what we're doing, we'll take this shape and we'll take, I'm just thinking, yeah, I want to take this shape, bring it to the front like this, and minus front. So what we did is just create this shape. Then I'll take that and these two shapes, I'll go ahead and unite them. And now with this shape on top, I'll minus front like that. And we'll go ahead and ungroup. So these are separate. And this I'll bring to the front. I need a little mini light down here so I can see the F keys. By the way, in my booth, this gets, I don't have air conditioning. That'd make too much noise and it'd affect the recording. But I do have a fan I could turn on. I should have turned that on. That's outside the booth, but it helps to circulate the air so it doesn't become like a hot box that you're torturing yourself in. There we go. There's the inner part of the ear. Then on these shapes that make up the bottom chin, the top, we'll go ahead and unite those. And now this eye shape we created, we'll just bring it to the front and it'll minus front through those shapes to create all the shapes of the face like that. These will all be the same color, so we'll go ahead and color those. I just noticed we didn't make an anchor point here so when we copy those over, I'll select all the elements that'll make up the main. And we'll unite those like that. It's looking good. All these whiskers, let's go ahead and unite those as one cohesive shape. And now we can take all the elements of the face, the eyes, the whiskers. We don't need to do the nose. That's already reflected, or the teeth. We'll do the tongue and the chin. And we're going to clone these, Command-C, Command-F, or I just hit the F3 key for keyboard shortcuts because it makes life a whole lot easier. Find a central anchor point and reflect it over. Now we can select these two shapes and unite them into one cohesive shape. On the chin, we'll do it on the tongue. And then on, oh, I just noticed we don't have an extra anchor here to make sure these overlap. Like that. And then the nose, this will be on top of everything. And it will knock through to the face. Like that. Oh, I just noticed we lost. This must be a group. You can always check by going to Appearance. It is. So this needs to be a compound path because when you make an edit on it, if it's a group, you'll lose elements. That throws so many people off for a long time. It doesn't retain the compound nature, which it should. Unless you tell it to remove compound nature, it should retain it. And for one version of Illustrator, I got the AI team to do that. And then all the Adobe certified pros complained, and they turned it back to what it is now, where it doesn't retain. Why? All the workshops I ever show this to, they're going, that's why it does that. I always wondered that. Well, it's because it's a pain point. And they fixed it, and then they decided to bring it back because all these, for whatever reason, they didn't give me a good reason. And it's like, complained about it, whatever. It's like, okay. I think that looks pretty good. Let's just color these black just to see. Let's see, we'll do this. No. Stay black, just the outline. There we go. Now this can look like a negative, obviously, because it's black on a white background. That's okay. Select all these, go paste behind. We can turn our sketch off now. We don't need that. And actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select all these shapes. I'll select the tongue and the mouth. We're going to test something. We're going to go yellow is the color the person requested. Color it yellow. Just for the sake, we're going to color this black fill, no outline. And I'm just going to create a black shape. Cut. Select all, paste behind. And that's looking pretty good. Now the eyes wouldn't be gold actually, or this would be like a white. That looks pretty good. I think that looks pretty good. I don't particularly like these colors. These were the colors that the client had requested. Let's go ahead and just color all these red. See, that looks better than everything being gold. So I think that looks pretty good. Now, what I would do on this is I would go in and add all kinds of subtle rounds, and I'm not going to bother to go into all of that. Well, first, let's go ahead and commit to these whiskers, because I wasn't sure if those would look that great, but I think they do look nice. Just as a safety precaution, actually, I'll just do everything. I'll go ahead and clone it, group it, and again, we'll move it to our X layer. I use autosave by Astute Graphics, which autosaves files, but I have it turned off on here just so it doesn't interrupt a recording. So we're going to take this, select the face, and minus front. Notice it's going to revert back to a group, so you always want to retain the compound nature. So I have an F key, F7, to whenever I do a function that's a Pathfinder function, I just hit F7 and it returns it to a compound nature. Now, it used to do that by default for one version. Then they took it away. So the rounding I would do is I go in on areas like this, and this is where I'd use Astute Graphics dynamic corners because it's faster. I don't have to select anything. I'll just go in on a shape like this. If you select it, this is pretty sharp, so let's zoom in any more. So if I select the dynamic corners, oh, see, I'm screwing up again. My muscle memory, that's not, this is past scribe. This is dynamic corners. So if I go into dynamic corners, I can just immediately grab and pull, and this is what I would do to determine what looks good. So this one, it's further back in his mouth, so maybe it's a little darker, so those radiuses would be larger. This could be smaller, like that. And now this isn't huge, meaning it's not a huge thing, but I think it does look good. Let's go ahead and just lock this background. That's Command 2 to do that. And then zoom in. So I think those little rounds look good. I'll also do it on other areas like the teeth, for example. And the nice thing about the rounding tool is I can just click to sample on anything else I rounded, like here, and then go to another shape and apply it. I don't have to have all those anchors or corner anchors selected to round at the same time. And you can't copy attributes with the corner widget. So for rounding detail, it's so much easier and intuitive, and kind of shows, I don't know, the short-sightedness of how Adobe implements things, in my opinion. So I just go into other areas, like even on the inverse areas, and I go ahead and just add subtle rounds there. But anything that comes to a dagger sharp point, like on his chin, I'd probably round this about that much, go to the other side, apply it, and then do the same thing to the teeth and other areas. And then there's transitionary points that I would improve on. And that is like, for example, let's go ahead and deselect the shape. If I go into this area where his chin goes into the side of his cheek right here, this doesn't look bad. It's not horrible or anything like that, but look how much better it looks. Again, I picked the wrong tool. I need to move this dimension tool. It's screwing up my muscle member. If I grab this corner and I do this, that way, if we go ahead and look at it, look at how much nicer it transitions into that curve. This is the kind of rounding that really makes something look button up and customized. I might even do that up here as this bottom part of the eye goes into the cheek. I might just soften that so it's not so, I don't know, chunky, and put a nice round there. So those are the kind of roundings that I would do. And one rounding that I did notice is as it goes into his ear, this is where I might even go a lot larger like this. And then if you compare the right to the left, you know, maybe let's undo that. I think a little smaller round would be more appropriate there. Again, wrong tool. Something like that. But I think that just overall makes a design so much better, so much more professional and buttoned up when you take the time to do this. Now, I'm not going to finesse all of those, so pardon me for not having all the rounding in place. I didn't pre-build any of this. I don't really like these colors, but let's go ahead and just select these, group it. I'm going to copy it, and I'm going to go ahead and turn this layer on because this was the name the person had, and I thought it was a cool name. And then if we take this, now if I wanted this to work on a white background, guess what I'd do? I would do an offset and create a black outline around it so it would still work on a light or a dark colored background. I'm not going to spend the time to do an offset, but I will show you because an offset, let's go ahead and, if I was doing this with the logo type, I would probably, let's go to line, go to center, something like that. Oops, there we go. Something like that. Now, if I was doing an offset, I'd take the main shape of itself. I would clone it. I'm not going to finesse this, but I will show you in general. And I'd fill it with another color. All these interior things just won't matter because they'll fill in anyway. Oops. So all I'm going to do is kind of get rid of most of those because they really don't matter and it doesn't have to be perfectly symmetric. So I'd select all this and then I would go to Pathfinder and I'd go Unite. So this is where I'd start out. And you can see up here, it's a free floating object. So I'd probably even do something like this. So nothing would be free floating and I'd unite it. Now, if we turn this into an outline so you can see it in relation to the design, that's all we've done. Now, I know we used, I think it's 10 that we used. And this is where it doesn't have to be perfect, but let's go ahead and paste that back. Go to Object, go to Path, go to Offset Path. Yeah, see, I think 10's a little much, so let's go to 8. And this is where you have to decide you want it to come to a point, because see what it does at these? It looks horrible. It gets to this point and then it goes straight instead of this curve wrapping around. And Adobe could fix this, but they never have. So what I usually do is I try round, because when it gets to that point that the mitering on straight would just go straight, it at least puts a nice round there. And if it doesn't make things look too soft, then that might be the way to go. And you'll just have to determine that. For me, I would go with the mitering, then I'd go in and fix everything. But we'll just go with this as if this is what we wanted, just for the sake of demonstrating. I'd take this, cut it, select the mark, paste behind, and then we would go ahead and make that a solid color so it works on a light background. Now, one thing I keep in mind when balancing it with typography is I still want the distance between, and I think this is almost too big, so I'd probably trying to figure out how to size it. Something like this. I want this to be primary, this secondary. So I would probably make the relationship something like this, but I don't think this looks great in these colors. And so the one thing I was thinking about that might be better colors is something more sophisticated, where if we select one of these shapes and we select all the shapes, the same color, we're going to try a gold color. Now that might be a little dark here. So what we're going to do is I'm going to take this and we'll color this. Actually, let's just do this. Let's copy it, turn on this layer, and I'm going to paste it. And I think gold looks pretty cool on here. If it's a black background, probably white. You don't need the outline actually. So that looks okay. Like that. I think the eyes are interesting, but I don't think red's working here. So maybe we color it gold. And this is where, since it's a global color, we could do a tint. Maybe we do 60%. Something like that. This is where I haven't figured it out. Usually I try to figure stuff out so I can show you how I resolved it, but you never get to see all the points in between. And this is definitely unscripted. I probably would have, I just didn't want to build it until I did the movie because I don't want to build it twice. So does this look good, this color? Yeah. Is the coloring on every aspect of it the way I'd want it? Probably not. I think I don't think the type being gold looks very good. And if it's on a dark background, you don't have that outline, I'd definitely move the type up. Maybe the answer is just keeping the eyes white. That might look good. I kind of like that. And then the tongue, maybe we make this 55, something like that. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure about that, but it is what it is. This is a project where it kind of went off the rails. I don't think this is exactly where I want this design to be. So since I'm not going to be sending it to a client now, I'll finesse it and I'll work it out. So if I ever get another client and they want a lion, this might work for their project. And this is the case where I think a little detailing might not be bad, but not to the degree I did in the previous one. I just think shading. I wouldn't put highlights in this. It doesn't need it. That said, on a design, now that I'm looking at this, I'll do one last thing. And that is when I have a design mark with a logo type like this, I'm going to make it about the same width. Color it gold. I didn't mean to do that. Then I'd take this and I'd bring it down here. Okay, this is the frustrating thing. You can't, it's like it forces you to zoom in. And even when you zoom in, you can't do it. If this is this, you can grab these sides and you can bring it in like this, which is nice. but at a certain size, they don't give you those controls, which is kind of dumb. Okay. Maybe it's a little thicker. So I like doing that type of thing when I have a type like this. So it is what it is. This is definitely raw and unscripted on this one. I do like these colors better, but again, it's not there yet. And so I'll share whatever I end up doing. I'll just post it on social media so you can see it. Well, actually, when I share this movie, I will have it figured out because the social images I post when I share the movie once it comes out will reflect the way I want it to be. So hopefully you found this useful. Thank you for watching People of Process. I hope you enjoy these, even the unscripted ones where I tell stupid stories and you see me screw up and sweat in a very hot recording booth. By the way, I'm wearing one of my favorite shirts somebody gave me at a conference who worked at Pabst Brewery, and it just says draw, and it's like a Pabst Brewery can with a cowboy hat and guns. So that's kind of cool. Anyway, unscripted. And I hope the methods I utilize in this movie help you with your own creative process. That's the whole reason I do this channel. If you have any ideas or you have comments, please leave them in the comments for this movie. I love reading them. I love interacting with the viewers who watch. And thank you for watching People Love Process.